Welcome to Life on the Rocks, your innovative entrepreneurship and motivational based show where we ask the real questions by tapping into the minds of successful, high-performing individuals. I'm going to predicate to you that luck is an illusion, disproving the myth that there's a such thing as an overnight success. Get ready and strap in 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from episode 64 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Connor LaRock. Today's featured guest in the hot seat is Mr. Milan Topolovec. How are you today, my friend?
Doing great, thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have Milan on the show this afternoon. For anyone who doesn't know Milan, he is the founder and CEO of Orbis. He is a partner of Barrington Wealth Partners. He is the founder and CEO of TK Financial Group. And I think you guys will find this really interesting. He is also an author of a book called Beyond the Tipping Point. And this is even better. I love this. He was a former professional football player with the Winnipeg Bombers. First question I want to start off with, Milan, before we get into this. I mean, you have a very versatile background. What got you started in business, going from an athlete all of a sudden to a big businessman? You've done phenomenal.
Well, part of it was I was playing at the time with the Rough Riders, and I had to make a decision. Basically, football was a tough time because there's no consistency. So I started in the insurance business with London Life. Like everybody else, you start selling, but I made a quick decision. I wanted to serve business owners and professionals, and basically, so typically the self-employed individuals. So I had to train myself through courses, numerous seminars, and so forth to get up to speed. Because as you know, when you start off, you have no experience. Yeah, I had my university education. However, that alone will not get you there. Right. So I did the cold calling, door knocking, walking up and down the street and introducing myself as the guy. And then after that, I found I wanted to own my own business. There's a lot of mistakes I made initially. Like everybody else, you say, I'm good at this, therefore I can be good at opening up my own business. And I decided, okay, I'm going to open it up. One of the things for young people to look at in a business is, first of all, have a business plan. The other part, when I do give talks at, say, schools and so forth, they ask me, what's a big thing? Well, if you're going to go into a partnership with somebody, make sure you know them. You know them well. That's another takeaway that you want to be sure. As far as the business, the fact that you believe that there's a good idea, good product, good service, that's not enough. There have to be people that want your service. So when you're thinking of providing a product or a service, say, okay, what's the size of the market? My market, I live in Ottawa, I do business in Toronto, Montreal, and all over, but my market is limited in a sense to the business owner professional. So everybody walking the street is not my right. Prospect or person I deal with.
No, I think that's huge too. I think that's great advice, especially for the younger generation. How difficult was it for you to start that business? Like, I know you probably had the drive and dedication coming back with a background as an athlete. How hard was it to start a business? And then obviously now you have multiple businesses.
Yeah, it was very difficult because there's no salary. So when you're going into the business, you got to have some backup. So that's another part I tell people, try to get financed. Try to figure out, okay, if I'm not having an immediate income, what's going to happen? So that's a big part. Right. It's lonely. It's lonely. So the other part is for anybody, even the older experienced business owners, get yourself a mentor. Or a number of mentors, which I'm fortunate enough because of the world that I live in. I have lots of people I can call upon for advice, which are either my clients or friends. But when you start, it's really hard. And so, hence, this is where the inner Orbis came about, even in business. Accounting, legal, banking, coaching. There's a whole array of things that you got to look at when starting a business. And so my clients actually pushed me into the end of Orbis because they were saying, okay, Milan, who do we go to? I need a corporate lawyer. I need an accountant. I need a bookkeeper. So what I did is created a whole service that's basically catered to those individuals. I started in the insurance business I'm still in the insurance business, but it's not an insurance sale. It's a planning process. So when I walk in, there's a discovery document, information, get to know the client, and put the pieces together. Often we do it by bringing their own advisors, like the accountant and the lawyer, and we're required, we'll bring in a Wayne Gretzky type of individual. That's like I work with professionals that have written books on tax and estate planning. So what I do is, so what I do is I basically create a team. Think of it yourself, you're the team owner, and you hire me to run your team,
Right.
all aspects of it. So I put the pieces together and drive the process. That's what Inner Orbis does.
I like that. I think that's really great where you've seen in the marketplace, you've seen maybe a hole where you were dealing with your clients already through insurance and you're like, oh, they need these services, and then bang, you capitalize. That's probably one of the best things, especially for newer entrepreneurs. It's like, act on it now. How do you feel, Milan, about I always ask people when I bring them on the show about how do you find your niche, or niche, however you want to say it. A lot of people, so you got into insurance and then obviously transitioned from there. Do you have any advice for finding your niche or kind of leveling in and not being so wide?
Yeah, the thing is, especially with Inner Orbis, I do family business advising. There's so many areas that I can provide. So even just a summary of what I do is extensive. However, what you want to look at is, first of all, what are you passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the passion and focus, say, on 2 or 3 things that you want to provide to the end user. Instead of going the shotgun approach, which a lot of people do, well, I'll do a little bit of investments. I don't do any investments. I own a division that does investments,
right?
But I don't do any. So I focused originally estate planning and insurance planning. That's it. That's all. I've never sold an investment product in my life and never will. I happen to own part of a division that does that, but that's not what I do. So try to figure out. It's like, okay, you can't be a quarterback and an offensive lineman at the same time when relating to a football team. So you have to choose a position you want to play. Choose a position, choose what you want to do. And then how do I get there? Look for mentors and try to figure out, okay, who's done this before? Right. And quite frankly, if you see a mentor, that person you want to know, ask them. It's the greatest compliment in the world. And so many people are worried about, oh my God, I can't ask him or her because she's so busy. She's untouchable. Listen, it's an honor to be able to help somebody. And somebody asking you, hey, can you help? Because all they can say no. And I guarantee you 99% of the time they'll say, sure, how can I help you?
It's so true. I think that's actually a really valuable piece of advice for young people there to get over that fear and just ask. Because I mean, I want to give some people some context here in the audience. Milan's helped me immensely. You are by far one of the best connectors I've ever met in my life. So this leads into my next question. Milan set me up with so many different people here. You got to meet this person. You got to meet this person. It's kind of the basis of your book, obviously. So Beyond the Tipping Point, talk about being a connector and how that's benefited you in your life, and it's been reciprocated back where you're just trying to help people, and that's the basis of your job. You're helping people find solutions. Talk about that for me.
Sure. Beyond the Tipping Point is a book I wrote. Again, it wasn't to make a ton of money. It was to explain to people how to network. Mm-hmm. Typically, people go to networking events and it's backslapping. They're looking for your business card and they're taking off to talk to somebody else. So part of the networking process for me is when I go to an event, if somebody's organizing, I'll say, Connor, who are the 3 people I need to know?
Right. I like
that. Can you introduce me? That's it. That's all. I don't need to know the whole room, just the 3, and with an introduction. So that's one way. So my book talks about connecting people and how to do it. When I spoke to Ottawa U football team, there was 100 players in the crowd, and I talked to them about networking, and they're kind of looking at me going, what are you talking about? We're a bunch of guys playing football, going to university. And what I said to them was, take a look around you. There's 100 players. Those 100 players have backgrounds, they have parents, they have connections. So everybody's a connection. So what I do is when I meet somebody like you or people, I just say, hey, wait a minute, how can I help this person? But see, not everybody thinks in those terms. My psyche is, how can I help you? Mm-hmm. Like I introduce you to Kevin in Toronto, I introduce you to my son, Nick. That's basically what I do a lot of. And in my process is, instead of, if you were here, say, Connor, here, talk to Kev. If we were here in Ottawa, or in Toronto, I would bring you together with the person you're meeting. I would let you know what they're like, and I would let them know what you're like. The chances of success are so large when that happens.
You're right.
And even when I introduce via emails, I make a call to whoever. I said, by the way, Nick, here's Connor. He's in Sudbury. He's doing great. So that's what I do. But it's second nature.
No, 100%. I mean, you're, like I said, you're one of the best connectors I've ever met in my life, always looking for things like that. I kind of want to transition from that. So we're going off of the mentality. A lot of people, like you said, there's not a lot of people, they're trying to take before they give. And I find that's one of the biggest problems in society. You know, you have people constantly on LinkedIn trying to right hook you and sell you their crap, and they don't even know you. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question. So this is interesting, an interesting perspective. When you started off in sales has somewhat of a stigma associated with Milan. How did you get over that hurdle to say, you know, sales is a very noble job as long as you're out there looking to help people, because that's what you're doing? How did you get over the stigma of being a quote unquote salesperson in the beginning of your career?
Well, first of all, you want to differentiate yourself. So you don't want to look like my age group. There was a guy named Herb Tarlick, you know, the used car salesman with the checkered suit and all that kind of stuff. No disrespect meant to the car salespeople. Because I did that as well. When I played football for the Blue Bombers, that was my job, day job. So long story short is, so I've been doing this all my life, is trying to differentiate myself from the next person. Education is a huge way. So I have designations upon designations. I go to tax conferences in Toronto with 700 lawyers and accountants every year. I go to other conferences so I can provide more to you. So for the young people as well as established people, you know, everybody said they're great, right? Everybody says, how are you? Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm great. No. We're the best. What does that mean? Differentiate yourself from the rest. So what you do is you say, okay, we are doing this. Here's how I differentiate. I differentiate myself. Yeah. And then promote yourself. Right. Ask people for referrals.
I love that.
Ask people for referrals. By the way, Connor, who do you know that's a business owner or professional that I can help put the pieces together? Right. So often that's the big part. But differentiate, it's your job. You're marketing all the time. So if you're going out to the store, you want to still look good. You don't need to wear a suit and tie or anything, but you don't want to have dirty jeans or dirty shirt. You're on candid camera all the time.
Right. No, I think that's actually a really huge approach too, and that's where some people get off. It's like, no, I always try to tell people, it's like, we never shut off. It's like at one point, you could all of a sudden be in the wrong moment. You walk in somewhere, it could be somebody that you want to connect with. And, you got wrinkly jeans on or something, they're going to look at you and it's going to throw them off.
Yeah, you want to shoot yourself. You go, God, I wish I wasn't here.
I know, literally. Yeah, and then you can miss the opportunity. I want to transition for a second. I think this is an interesting question. Do you find any parallels between being a professional football player and then being a business person? Like, how has your upbringing in football transitioned to you in business? How has it helped you?
It's a very good question. I think that's somebody was talking to me about writing a book, doing a parallel from professional football as well. The second book, and talk about what I learned. I learned a lot from football. Mm-hmm. It's a great sport. Teaches you team play. Right. Teaches you that you're responsible for doing what you do. When I played offensive line, which I played both sides, offense and offensive line, I had my own responsibility. If this player crosses your face, you let go of this person, pick him up, right? So you learn your responsibilities. And so in business, what's the most important thing that you have to do? What's important today? That's your number one. What's important today? So that's one aspect of the football. The other part is just the discipline. 100%. It's easy to goof off. It's easy not to go to the weight room. It's easy not to do your sprints. It's easy not to do this. And, like Tom Landry said at, the legendary coach of the, Dallas Cowboys, he said, there's the pretenders and the contenders. What's the difference? The contenders come to play and they win games. Pretenders look the same, they bench the same, but they're not the same. So be a contender. Do yourself a favor. Whatever you decide you're going to do, say, I'm going to be the best at this.
You're right. No, I like that. I think that's really great advice for people. And it's interesting too. I come from an athletic background. To see your approach on it, I think it is it's a very good approach. I want to transition off of that. So being a professional football player, let's not lie, that's a difficult feat. You're getting guys, big grown men run at you and try to take you out. How did you get over that fear? And how is that applying to your life today where, you're going on the field, you're looking someone in the eyes and running, opposed to going into a boardroom and, you might be negotiating a deal? Like, how can you draw parallels on that and how you overcame your fear?
Yeah. The fear was probably earlier. The fear was not so much of being hit. It was more of making a mistake.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The fear was of making a mistake and that could possibly cost your team. And the same in the business. You make a mistake that could cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. That's a lot of money. You can't afford to make mistakes. So how I got over it's like you're not nervous about hitting people because I was used to that. But the idea of going down the field, I remember being in Edmonton, opening game, Winnipeg was playing Edmonton. I was nervous as heck a second half. I wasn't nervous about hitting anybody. I was nervous about I'm going to get cut, even though I'm not the star of the show, because they want to make changes. They want to look like they're doing something. So I ran down the field and hit Neil Lumsden, bent my face mask, blew out my air sacs, and they had to carry him off the field. Those were the days before concussion protocol. So I get back to the sideline. The manager says, I've never seen this before. By the way, here's another helmet. So the fear, it's like, when you get up in the morning, you shave, it's game time.
Right.
So it's like you put on your jacket, or you put on, if you're working in a trade, you put on your uniform. It's game time. You're on candid camera. So what it is to overcome fear, any fear, just do it. Like the Nike commercial, just one step at a time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, if anybody tells you they're not scared, they're full of it. Okay, so whether it's public speaking, which you do, and I've done as well, you're scared. If you weren't scared, you're not human, or you're useless.
Right.
Because being scared means, hey, I'm pumped. I want to make this thing worthwhile. I'm on this show to hopefully help some of your listeners and your watchers. Let people know, hey, by the way, this is normal. Being scared is normal.
So true.
Like if you weren't scared, I'd be wondering what's wrong with you.
No, 100%. And even if you take it serious too, I've seen that with people where you see a lot of those UFC fighters. Oh, I'm not scared. And it's like, oh, that's a load of crap. If you're, an actually interesting quote is, if you're not scared, are you really prepared? Right? Because you don't really care. Yeah. So I thought that was good. I wanted to ask you, this is super important. It's a question I've been posing to a lot of my audience. Do you have any advice? So, especially when you're starting in business, you're trying to negotiate better deals, try to get yourself the money you're worth. Do you have any advice for people to get over that fear and ask what they're worth? Because I know sometimes people will just take any deal. They won't, just to get a price, and then all of a sudden they don't get a good deal out of it. Do you have any advice for people on trying to negotiate prices and get a good deal in business?
Yeah, I've been through this because I now own a consulting firm. Mm-hmm. The work that I do in the consulting firm, there's a retainer and so forth. That was hard for me because I'm a giver. I've given all these years, 30 plus years, I've been doing this work for free with the idea, if I do all this planning for you, put the pieces, and if there's a need for insurance, we'll do it. Well, guess what? So then finally you go, okay, wait a minute. What are you worth? You're worth something. I have people that tell me, accountants say, Milan, you could have charged a client $20,000 for what you did. I didn't, but I didn't charge them that, but you're worth something. So the first thing is sit down with yourself and say, okay, what do I provide? Who do I provide it for? And what value is it? Be truthful to yourself. If there's value, you're worth it. So first of all, don't ever basically cut yourself down.
True, yeah.
You know what? You have value.
I think that's huge advice, honestly. I think that's really big, is just to prioritize. And I think, do you find in the generation today, so the younger ones, let's say millennial generation Z, the one thing I've studied, especially when you look at the university culture, I'm a big fan of education, and I love a university if you have somewhat of a plan. I think a lot of people today are going in without a plan, they're not clear, and then that inevitably leads to the failure and why you get a degree and it doesn't work out. would you agree with that statement that one of the biggest problems is that some of these students aren't clear and then they're going to university, put themselves into debt? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, the problem is, it's like my son said, you know, when he was at Ottawa U, he said, Dad, these guys are teaching business courses. They've never been in business. But I said to Nick, they have a degree. So it doesn't, you know, they've got that. So back to knowing what you want to do. Unfortunately, university or college is more probably than university. I haven't been to college, but I've been to university. Don't teach you how to prepare for next chapter. So you walk out with a degree and you go, okay, that's nice. I got a degree from XYZ. What am I going to do with it? So aptitude tests. Aptitude tests can be helpful. Say, okay, here's, you know, a good aptitude test will kind of start guiding you and say, okay, here's my strengths. Obviously, you're not going to be a nuclear physicist if you can't do math, right? But, you know, maybe marketing, if you have the flair, marketing might be more of your thing. You may want to go to be a teacher. You may want to, there's so many noble jobs. There's no bad job. It's just you finding what is it that you're getting. So you walk out with a degree, next day you're done university. You go, okay, what do I do now?
It's true.
Figure that out before. And so the problem is, listen, you can have a degree in geology and be excellent at something totally different. The fact that you have a degree just helps you know that you can think. And you can think and you can complete something. So as an employer, when I look at somebody applying for a job, I say, okay, they have a degree. That's a start. Do they have people skills? So work on your strengths. Okay, I know people say work on your weaknesses. No, work on your strengths, in my opinion.
It's true.
Because your strengths will take you a lot further than the weaknesses.
No, it's so true. And you don't want to, it's again, I guess it comes down to a lot of the time is that focus. What are you focusing on? So if you're always focusing on what you suck at, it's not going to allow you to reach that kind of peak performance. Do you have any tips in the morning? Do you do any rituals or any things that get you into that prime state? Like you said, you shave and then after that it's game time. Do you have anything that you run through your head or you do that prepares you and primes you for your day?
Yeah, I do. I start off, I have a planner, daily planner. So I look at my yearly goals, my 10 different goals and what needs to be done. And then I plan my day out. Who am I seeing? What are priorities for today? This was one of my priorities. If you saw my planner speaking with you and I said, okay, things like discipline. So that's that. So when I start, that's where I start. I'm spiritual. I don't go to church, unfortunately enough, but I do read the Bible. So I'll read a section of the Bible, just one section, that's all. And then I read the newspaper, find out what's happening around me. Then I'll go into, say, the LinkedIn, and I'll look at on LinkedIn, okay, who's doing what, you know? The other part I do is on birthdays. I have people my clients that are their birthday, or if it's your birthday, I will say, hey, Connor, happy birthday, have a great day, enjoy your day. Take an extra minute. So what I do is when my clients, they show up, like at the start of the month, my receptionist says, okay, here's the birthdays, this one, this one, this one. Some I'll take the time to call.
Right.
And it blows people away. Like my friend in Hamilton, Mike Giftopoulos, I called him. And you know what? We've been friends for a long, long time. And I just say, hey, man, I'm not going to text him. I got time. I can call him. So I called him on Saturday. So making that extra special, you know, there's a routine. And also for young people, say thank you. Say thank you to people. See this?
Yep.
Little card, I meet you, and I got, let's say we meet in town, I got your address, I got everything. I'll say, Connor, it was great talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. And you don't have to have a pre-made card. Just get a card, period. Take that extra effort. So I mentor also young guys. Everything from football players that currently play in the CFL to whatever. And what I do is I try to instill upon, go that extra mile. Do the extra things that others don't. So even when you're applying for a job, you know, so many people just put on a resume and they never call back. No, tell me why you want to work here. Tell me. So it's not, call back, say, hey, I'm still interested. Can I meet you?
Exactly. No, it's so true. And I always try to teach that as well. I love that advice, Milan. It's huge, is that people don't realize, you even look at races, between, let's just take two runners. It's not that the other guy blows the other guy away most of the time. It's that little extra little bit of training that, goes that far away. And that's what people got to see, I think. I want to ask you, so transitioning, you're talking about, coaching students, coaching CFL players, obviously business people as well. How does that transition? I know you're an active speaker as well, so you do speaking, and I've heard from you and other people that you said you're one of the, you have a very emotional speech that you give that is very heart-throbbing. Talk about being a speaker and how that's a great way to give back, and how do you enjoy that, that kind of passion and energy you bring up on the stage. It's kind of like being on a football field, but a different, you're in front of the lights in a different way.
Yeah, speaking is a way of giving back. Okay, I'm not speaking for myself. I don't need accolades. I don't need to say I'm a speaker or this or that. It's a way of giving back. I've been in insurance conferences where I speak, and somebody would say, "Well, why are you, teaching your competitors?" I'm not. If that person does a job for somebody and they have a critical illness, say, and they sold them a policy, she gets a cash check payout because of my conversation, my speech. So the speaking part of it gets you out of your shell. So part of it is it gets you out of your shell. You're able to tell the story. What are you about? And people want to know.
It's true. No, I think it's probably one of my favorite things to do personally. And I think same with you, being that you're a connector, it's probably nice that you get out there. I can imagine, I want to see you on stage. I can imagine your engaging style. You get out there, you tell your story, and it's not like you have you have a very original story, like, so many different facets to it. I want to ask you one of my last questions, kind of transitioning here. Talk about, I always want to talk about the football thing. What made you go into football? So I find it fascinating that, I always look at people's stories, the backdrop of it. And you come from an immigrant background as well, right?
Yes.
So you migrated to Canada. Talk about how that's played a role, and then getting you into football, and then obviously a very successful businessman. Like, where did you find the passion for the football and all that, like coming over to Canada?
Well, I started in grade 5 training with I lived in a little town called Acton, Ontario. I trained with an Olympic ex-Olympian till grade 8. I lost my parents in a car accident in grade 8. I was in the back seat. I lived. So I was an athlete. We used to finish off with a 15-mile run. So here I go. I would do 100, 440, 880, did everything. So I now move in with my uncle in Hamilton. Don't know anybody. Don't know, no friends, no nothing. I'm at a brand new school, a kid with a European name. Okay, so that was already tough enough. So first year I wrestled, basketball, football, soccer, and track. Those are the sports, because there was no psychologist. That's how I was able to cope with moving on. Football, I knew nothing about football in grade 9. I used to watch the other people put their equipment on so I wouldn't put it on wrong and be laughed at.
Right.
First year was terrible. I was jumping up offside all the time because I figured if I see him move, I'm going, and the ref would see him. But my coach said, "You're costing us so many penalties." So I took the summer to learn the football. In grade 10, I still remember Mr. Cole. He said, "This guy's going to play in the CFL." So I also played competitive soccer, very competitive, high level.
I believe it.
Even though I'm a big guy. So the choice was I wanted to play football. And so when I went, I had originally scholarships, Cornell, Syracuse, Bucknell, Idaho State in grade 11, Florida State. Took a year, anyway, there was this history in there. I took some time off, went to Ottawa U, played football. And it was hard because I had to put myself through school as well.
Of course.
I had to earn income. So there was no, losing my parents. So any job that would come, I would set up school desks for exams. I was a door person. Whatever job there was, whether moving carpets, whatever, I would take in addition to play football. So right. I decided after my third year to go into the draft, and I was drafted by Winnipeg. It was, and then when I got there, my second year, I realized that football wasn't the end game.
Right.
And it's not the end game. And unless you think of it as an end game as a player, that's all you're doing is playing football, you're in trouble. So the players that I'm dealing with, that are, and one in particular, that's a very good friend of mine, I coached him in grade 11. I tell Alex, he plays for the Red Blacks, I say, "Alex, you're playing football, you're a star. What are we going to do in the next chapter? And as one of the guys in Winnipeg, Jimmy Crone was the quarterback, and it was a bad situation. A father of one of the players died in the stands. And so Jimmy Crone said, it's not how you play the game of football, it's how you live your life. So whether you're a wrestler, karate guy, which I've done that as we just talked about, I did karate for 10 years, doesn't matter, it's the rest. And the other things that kids would, because I was involved with athletes and actions in the schools, you go and a little kid one time asked me, he says, how do you see little people? And I look at him, what do you mean little people? I said, I see everybody as human beings. So back to something else in business, you're going to be on your knees. Right. There are days that things aren't working that well, and there are days that are. So be ready. Part of like football, you got to pick yourself up.
It's true. No, absolutely. Milan, I think that's a really great point. And again, going back to your story point at the beginning with your parents, I dearly apologize for that. But you can see, you see the dedication, the drive, everything you put into what you built today, like this big enterprise. You're very successful. The last question I want to pose to you before we close this interview off, and I think it's a very important one for my audience, because I look at all the accolades and things you've done, and I'm highly impressed. And I honestly, I think you're a great person. You can see you come from the heart. The last question I want to ask then is, do you think hard work trumps talent? So you see people that are naturally gifted and talented. Do you think if you're a hard worker that it can trump talent, or is there other variables involved with that?
I think hard work beats talent when talent isn't working.
I like that.
So the part of it is through my years, I've had players that I've played with that were talented beyond talented, whether basketball in high school, they could sink anywhere around, like a talent, but the attitude didn't take them to there. So by having talent in itself and not working, there's other players that would have been more talented than I were for sure, but they weren't in the gym 3 hours a day.
Right.
They weren't running this Carlingwood ski hill. We used to run in 26 seconds from bottom to the top, 6 times in a row. So they weren't doing that. If you don't want to work, I don't care how talented you are, it's not going to work. You're going to be found out as a fake.
It's true. No, you're absolutely right. That's actually great advice, Milan. I must say, just when people are going to go through this interview, you can already say, so what I want to do, the one thing I'm going to do, where can we find you online? Before this, I'm going to put a link at the end of this video where they can go purchase your book and go take a look into Beyond the Tipping Point. Where can we find you online? So obviously LinkedIn, can you give us your account so that people could be able to go and reach out?
Yeah, LinkedIn, you can also, if anybody wants just to, anything, they can email me at milan@tkfg.ca.
That's awesome.
And the book is available at Amazon. It's available Chapters, Barnes and Noble. And the book application is good for anybody. You want to learn how to network, I guarantee you don't have to know 3,000 people.
Right.
It starts with one.
So true. All I want to say, I want to close this off, Milan. Honestly, I've interviewed 65 people, in the last 2 years. You dropped some of the best advice I've ever seen. And I honestly can say that from a practical standpoint for these students and people that are watching, I think you've done an incredible job. I'm proud to call you a family member of mine, and we're in the same family for people that don't know. Honestly, keep up the great work. I'm excited to just see some other stuff. I mean, you've already done so many different things. I can only imagine what you have coming. So thank you so much for coming on my show today.
You're welcome, and I enjoyed it. And keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you too, my friend.